Mm-mm. Hey, good evening, everybody. Hello, welcome to Tuesday night, where it has suddenly become winter. No, I've flown down to Christchurch, so we're live in Christchurch tonight, doing this live session. I hope you're well. I have coffee to keep me warm and awake and overly excited like usual. But it's nice to be back here, doing a little live session and doing the AMA thing, the Ask Me Anything. Hey Ozzy, hey James, nice to have you here. Nice to be back doing another little session and new little location. This is hey Dave, Moses, how's it going? I flew down from Auckland this morning, down to the mighty Christchurch. So I'm rugged up. I'm complaining that it's cold, walking around the house everywhere. But it's good. Hey Mark, how's it going? Good evening, my friend. I apologize, Mark. I've just realized I was going to connect you with someone that I absolutely have not sent that message. So I'm going to make a note actually now, because based on last week's attempt, I will forget. So I'm doing that now. Done. Right. You're on my list, Mark. Sorry about that, my friend. Nice. Hi, everybody. I hope you're having a good week. As I was saying, I'm down in Christchurch, and it's really quite cool. So I have the Zoom L8 that I'm running through, which I think you guys know that's what I'm using to do any of the live stream sort of stuff. And this will change the audio, but in terms of suitcase options, this mighty microphone and stand has come with me. Oh, it's lovely and cool in Nelson. I bet it's tropical and warm in Nelson. You're miles further north than Christchurch. But yeah, running just, that's the audio that you're hearing is a little an Aston Origin microphone that I'm sure I've mentioned before. I really like the overall tone and sound of it. Hence why I bought one. But yeah, it's kind of nice to throw all that stuff in, and I have the Voicelive3 with me as well. And then, I managed to put, I'm sure, like I put, a couple of clothes in the bag, but it's mostly audio and music gear. So priorities, right? Getting that sorted. But basically just checking in. This is crazy. This is number 11 of these little sessions. Just making myself available to hang out, and basically we can chat about whatever. You can pick my brains. Sometimes I wonder how useful my brains are, but then we all do that from time to time. So hopefully you get something useful out of these sessions, and if not, you know what? I enjoy connecting with you and hanging out. So maybe that's what there is: a bit of fun, a bit of music, and some potential learnings along the way. But I have spent this week moving and doing a whole bunch of stuff, so I really I felt rusty, to be honest, picking up the guitar tonight and retuning it up after putting it on a plane and and playing. Ezekiel, hey man, nice to have you here. This is my guitar that has been with me since I started playing guitar, which is crazy to think about. And you can obviously tell it's had a little bit of life and work. It's a Takamine ND15C. If you want to go and look it up, it's an old model guitar now, and I love the tone and sound of it. very grateful for this guitar and happy that it's still with me doing a bunch of shows. Thanks. Yeah, it's super nice tone, and it's got one of the old preamps that is very nice, but runs through AA batteries very quickly. It would be the only thing I would change about it. And yeah, it is. It's cool. Yeah. So I've been fortunate to have this, and I actually, Marcus, I'm looking forward to when we hang out because I want to hear your new guitar. By the way, that will happen hopefully later this week, and I think you're on holiday now, so hopefully it's been getting lots of playing and practice. All right, we're diving into it. Live recordings, Mark, tomorrow. Female singer with guitar in a cafe tomorrow. Are you running through a desk or anything in terms of like a PA and that sort of thing? Let me know maybe what gear you have that you're planning to run, and maybe we can chat a little bit about it. That sounds like a good project that I would be into. Cool. Oh, Ezekiel, nice. That's great. What loop pedal have you picked up? I'm curious. Yeah, it's a fun process, and I actually I was thinking back to my very first experience with looping, and I remember learning the solo for Layla, which I probably make up now, but I got this loop pedal and I took it straight to a gig, and it was actually a very classy golfing event, and I was really excited, thinking, great, my normally just playing acoustic, no loops, no anything like that. I thought this is going to be great. I can suddenly loop it, and I don't even know if I can recreate as bad of a loop as I recorded on that day, but I recorded a loop with the I was out of time. I had two of those. Actually, let's try it. I'm going to record a bad loop and give you some volume. This was my loop, the very first live performance loop. It was pretty much like this. And how annoying is that? I couldn't stop it because I panicked, being like, this didn't go how I planned, and B, I was so unfamiliar with the pedal, which was a Jam Man stereo loop pedal at that time, that I the combination of panicking in a live situation, not knowing the gear, and just not thinking about oh, okay, right, in theory this should be very simple, but actually the practice behind it hadn't happened, and eventually stopped it and got rid of it, and I did not use any loop or anything for the rest of that show, and then went home and dived into obviously practicing and getting it working. But it can be very awkward. Well, it was for me doing that on stage, but it was probably a good learning point, to be honest, to actually understand and know how to deal with the awkward situations. So cool, you got the RC300. It's an awesome pedal. Very, very cool. You can have a lot of fun with it. Yeah, that's very cool. Nice. Cool. Yeah, another Japanese guitar, Dave. Nice to see you here, by the way. And if you want to put in, we should talk about what you messaged me with the Voicelive3 as well. I'll get to that in a mo. Maybe write something in to remind me. I feel like I'm forgetful at the moment. Cool, Mark. Nice. Yeah, look, I would with the setup that you've got, you kind of have a couple of options, I guess. With the stereo mic, obviously you can get a great room sound. That they're excellent, and if you've got a really nice blend of the room, and you can, depending on what your if you can listen to that mix while you're going, then that'd be ideal. But being able to have a lav mic as well, then I'm torn. I would be tempted to have the stereo mic pick up a little bit more guitar and have the lav mic on her, obviously vocal, so that you can have a really clear vocal to play around with. And then the stereo mic's going to get a combination of the two, but it's going to be weighted more to the electric guitar through the amp, and that means the two signals, when you blend them together afterwards, you've got some control to get a good balance of, for example, if you just have the stereo mic with basically too much guitar, you can bring up the vocal till it sits nicely in the mix. It's a bit of editing work, obviously, rather than just using the stereo mic to capture the room. But those would be my choices or options. And yeah, if you wanted to be honest, because you've got the lav mic, you could just use the stereo mic to go for just the sound out of the amp. But yeah, with the stereo combo, I'd just be tempted to give yourself a little bit of space to perhaps capture a little bit of the room, and her vocal doesn't have to be crazy. You'll pick it up anyway, but without getting too far away that if it's a noisy cafe environment, you're getting a lot of extra noise and details happening on it. So yeah, cool. It should be fun. Let me know if it's being. I'm not sure if it's being filmed as well, but that'd be cool to see it, Mark. If you get it all up and running. Right, I promised David that we would chat a little bit about, for those of you with the Voicelive3 and with setting up presets, then just talking about how to do that in a live situation. And this probably applies if you're using a few different sounds and settings for different tunes, different songs, and kind of mapping out, do you need to have a set list so that things flow in order in terms of your actual sound and tone on the guitar, or do you kind of have a main sound that you go for with the ability to turn on and off, bring in other soundscapes and pedals and setups, which I think is an awesome question. So basically, David, you've got there, I was wondering, when you set up the VL3, do you have general presets like acoustic guitar on one preset and bass on a separate preset, and you keep swapping between them and work with blank loop slots? So just in terms of the looping with the Voicelive3, at 99.8% of the time, I use just loop slot one. It's set up in smart mode, and it's absolutely empty. It means that I'm creating everything live. I can create, I don't have any set bar structures and that sort of thing. It's completely open, and the smart mode basically gives a little bit of grace that it just works out and matches. For example, if I do 4 bars of rhythm, that I probably am going to have 4 bars of a B section, track B. So in terms of the loop slot, I leave it. That's what's running for under any and all of my presets, which is great. A little bit different probably with the RC300. You may want to have some saved setups for how many bars you're looping and recording, which is cool that you can do that. Ezekiel, seeing as you're here. Hey Paul, how man? How's it going? We're just talking through the mighty Voicelive3 and setting up presets and sounds. So, David, for my setup with the Voicelive3, if we do it like this is going up the presets and this is going down, I have my main preset that I want in the middle, so that is, I guess, the closest going down each way to access the other parts that I want. And I typically don't use the step function. Now I have a bunch of people that are like, what are you talking about? That would be the best option. But I just use the presets and have them saved next to each other. So if I go down one, that's actually my bass preset. And so I go from to having, you'll hear a bit of the guitar as well from the microphone, but I have that just set as a preset. And I find that's the easiest because when I switch to the loop screen, it means that I still know that if I go down a preset, I've got my bass. If I go up 2, so I've gone from the bass to my standard and now to a lead sound. So I'm still on the looper screen. I am working on, unfortunately, with this mighty 2020 year that we're having. I'm using my laptop webcam as the view that you're seeing, but there will be set up, which is going to be great. But for these live sessions, a little cam switcher so that I'll be able to have live another camera actually on the Voicelive3 talking you through this. So for those of you that don't have a Voicelive3, I hope this is somewhat useful for you, but I set everything up so that it's like I can come back to this middle bass, which I use for a lot of songs, and then there's say a few steps away some different tones and different sounds that I'm going to use for different songs. But for me, for most of my songs, I want to come back to a pretty standard acoustic guitar sound as the bass sound, so that's my sound and tone and flavor. So Grimsh, how's it going, man? It's good. I am down in the mighty Christchurch, and I'm all rugged up trying to keep warm, but actually these headphones are the best warmth device I think you could buy, to be honest. So the other option, David, just carrying on quickly with this Voicelive3 setup, is what you can do is if you plan your set list, and I think this makes more sense if you're working with a band rather than as a soloist. But if you're planning out your set list, and especially if you've got a specific show, this is great. And you can actually do this quite easily with the voice support. You can drag things around to the settings that you want. But it means that you can have your settings really lined up so that, for example, let's say preset number 100 was where you started. That's your first song, or maybe that's your first 2 songs. Then preset 101 or is the next song, 102 is for the next song, and you're just going to work your way up through those as you go through your set with the tones and the sounds and settings that you would like. The good and bad side of this on the Voicelive3, you have some better options on the Voicelive3 Extreme but you want to check that your levels for the guitar output remain consistent with your presets, which is very, very well worth doing and spending the time if you've got a lot of different settings, because otherwise suddenly you get to one song and you're like, if you've been practicing at home and doing all that, we sometimes don't tend to actually put a bit of gain into things, and then suddenly it's like my guitar feels like it really dropped out of the mix a bit. So yeah, that's how I approach it. I don't really do the total set list thing, and obviously the beauty is because we've got presets, you can do that if you want, but I just I have presets going up, typically my lead kind of tones and that sort of thing. Down goes to bass, and then it goes to a couple of other like kind of crunch tones that I have for certain songs if I want to mix it up and do something different. So yeah, that's how it works. So has anyone got any good jokes? No, I actually just seeing as you're all, silent in the chat for a moment, I just wanted to put out, I sent out an email to my lovely email list last night, and I'm really excited for an event that's happening, and I'm going to actually I'll share a link with you. A lot of you know that I worked with sounds confusing. Nice. Yeah, the Voicelive3 definitely takes a bit of work and learning. It's an amazing pedal, but day one out of the box, you definitely don't want to do what I did with the loop pedal example that I said before, and just expect that you'll be able to take it to a show. It really does take a little bit of figuring out. So Per Bristow is an amazing voice coach, and I know some of you I've talked about and have worked with there. I'll put the links here, but in the chat. But this is an event I'm going to, just so you know. It's July the 17th to the 19th. It's a virtual event, and I flew to Brisbane a number of years ago now. It's probably, I'm going to say 5 years ago. And it was the first time I actually got to meet Per and hang out after doing his singing program. But this, for me, I really like getting around people that are going to help me improve, that I'm going to learn better information. I'm going to pick up a different energy and vibe of what's actually possible. So if you're over in the mighty Europe and USA, then there's a different link for the event, which is actually the weekend before. And I've been considering, even though the time zones in New Zealand will be very odd, I've been actually considering attending that one too, which will possibly be a little bit crazy. 2 full weekends with Per Bristow working on. Basically, if you're a musician, you're an entrepreneur in some way, shape, or form. And I know that word gets thrown around, but you kind of, there's not a set path, I don't think. And which is probably part of why we are musicians and kind of want to express ourselves and maybe do things a little bit differently at times. But I just want to share it and put it out there. I will be doing it, and I obviously it hasn't happened yet, so I don't I can't tell you about it, but you guys will notice on my channel what comes out and what I start doing and changing as a result of that event. So if you want to be part of it, you can obviously search it up and find out about it. But the time zones are set for different weekends. So if you want to have an event that's a reasonably normal time zone, then that's the one. If you're in New Zealand or Australia or that sort of thing. So yeah. Okay, cool. Crimch. I can stop talking about random things that I'm up to or doing or coming up now that you have put some more questions in the chat. What's the best, in my opinion, what's the best way to approach learning licks? How was the process when I first really focused on licks? Okay, when I first started learning licks, I basically learnt solos. I had no idea what the chords they were over, how they worked. I genuinely just was kind of like, I either got handed something from my guitar tutor at high school with tab on it, being like, from a recent radio song or something. And I remember I was really into the Dave Matthews Band, so I learnt. Well, I should say I tried to learn a bunch of the Tim Reynolds solos on the album Live at Luther College with Dave Matthews and Tim Reynolds. And again, I had absolutely no idea how they connected, what chords they were over, any of that sort of stuff. It was purely just, that sounds cool, I want to learn it. When I started really learning licks and figuring out what yeah, and smatching, that's a long time since I've played that, far out. When I started actually, I guess, diving into learning licks and figuring out how they work together, I started basically with the pentatonics and had those as a framework. And then one of the things I really enjoyed was, this is a long explanation, but you've jumped on this channel a bunch of times. You know that I talk too much. One of the things I really enjoyed was, for example, if we're playing an A minor pentatonic, realizing that it was like, realizing that it sounded way more interesting if I played that pentatonic pattern over a chord progression that was changing. So it started my brain thinking like, okay, maybe I could learn a simple lick, and it might be, that's all it is, a little lick. And you think, okay, it has a certain sound over a minor chord. What if we played an F chord? Exactly same note, same lick. I don't know if you can kind of hear and how that's going to go over this. It has a totally different sound to this A minor to it. So it's kind of like a little bit of a journey I went on, experimenting with, should we say, using really basic licks, but starting to, hey, how's it going? Germany. All right. I want to visit Germany at some stage, side note. Okay, we're talking about learning licks. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. But I like the way that, depending on where you put the lick and over what chord, it can give you a different flavor, a different tone. So going back to your original question, I played around with really simple things. So if there was, what should we do? Okay, we're back. So in terms of learning licks, basically I tried to see what chord it was over and then look at what it might work over. I feel like this, I've made this way more complicated than it is, but getting a feel for your options of. I'm going to keep using this example. So that's kind of like leaving it in that A minor. So then I would play around with doing that. So like going back to this F sound and being like, okay, if I start with the same thing, I can put it into another chord pretty easily, or I can turn it into a C chord, some other sort of. So it's kind of like, I feel like everything is moving constantly, and there's a really nice, I think it was on a Herbie Hancock little tune that I first heard it, was actually playing notes from the chord you're moving to, and I really like it as a little idea for licks and for soloing. So the idea being that if we're going from this chord like a G, we'll just do a loop. So you would play, for example, the A minor over the G, but just before it. So you're like, rather than thinking purely in one chord and thinking, right, G lick. G lick, A minor lick. That works and it's great, but if we go, let's say G, so I started with a G lick and then I went into an A minor phrase before the chord had actually arrived. So I really like some of those little tension things. And yeah, look, I hope that's a useful explanation, Grinch. There's so many different ways to do it. And I also, to add to that, one of the things I like doing is when I learn a lick, working out what chord progression it is over and just putting it into a different key. Nice. All right, I've convinced Paul it's time for ice cream with talking about licks. I like it. Enjoy, man. Thanks for dropping in. So if you really like a particular lick, I feel like it's great to work out in the song what the chord structure is and what it's played over, and then just figure out putting it into a different key. The process of doing it has you think about lots of stuff sometimes and be like, right, where would I play it? Is it going to be on different strings? Is it going to be in a different position in the neck? Can I relate it to actual chord shapes that I'm working around? Or is it just total brain freeze, which I've done plenty of times too, when you put it into another key, being like, hang on, where does this actually, how's this going to fit in right now? So I feel like that's a very long explanation, but that's kind of been my process of learning licks and phrases. And I tend to pick out things that I like and then try and navigate them into other keys or that sort of thing. So yeah, nice. So it's kind of like if there was something in, let's say in a D, which if you're playing along is D flat, I'm tuned to somewhere E flat or slightly below as my guitar resettles after being on a plane. But let's just do this one for you. If we had something in D, and let's go with a, what's fun for here? Let's do that. we'll come back to a major. That's going to be fun. So what I would picture for that, and what I'm picturing playing around with it as I make this up for you right now, is here's my D chord here, and I'm looking at it like this is where I'm going to work to the 10th and 8th, 9th, 10th frets, coming up to the D. So I'm starting with which is like the minor version, because we kind of got a blues feel. And then I'm looking at this as my next D here. So and then back to the major, because it's just fun to play with those two. Aussie, super good point that I just spied there. Some blues or country solos, great way to go for chord changes and playing over them. But I'm looking at it there. So then the easiest option is if we just drop it down to C, and we can apply the same thing and go, okay, cool. That was, if that's our C, we started. Coming back up to the C major. But then where it gets interesting is it's like, if you start taking it to a point, let's go with G, we can still play it here if we want. But then, like where do we go to? We've run out of guitar neck. So that process I find is really good, of being like, okay, what am I actually playing? and obviously for G, but it's like, okay, we're gonna have to get this back to it. Sorry, my guitar is disappearing off thing. We're gonna have to get back to an E shape for this lick, rather than the A shape that we've been kind of working to, from an E shape to A shape. Now we've got E shape, so still I'm picturing it from here. But then for our G, I'm working towards this little thirds in the G. So yeah, that's just me playing around with some ideas for you. It's good as, thanks, man. Thanks for dropping in. Yeah, I like connecting licks with chord shapes and being able to picture what I'm playing over, rather than just the notes of a lick. So Dave, yeah, just going back to the Voicelive3, absolutely. I have a few different options for vocals with exactly the same guitar setup in my Voicelive3, which I think is kind of what you're talking about. And I have that as a totally separate preset, so that my guitar sounds the same, but suddenly then I have the harmonies below, or a different setting, or a different tone or effect that I might want for that song. So thanks everybody. I appreciate you dropping in. Chomley, I'm reading your message and my brain is fried reading it. Hard while landing on your one root to resolve while lick is coming from another chord or key. I'm not sure quite what you mean. It's kind of sounds like you're, well, let's say we're doing the little finish from there, like a 6-7-1 thing, where it kind of feels like we're not in the same key. If we've been playing in D. Then your lick would come from a different series of notes out of the key, but you're going to end up on a D chord. So I don't know if that's kind of what you're talking about, but I feel like so long as you're aware of when the changes happen, then landing on and you make sure that so long as when that last D chord is played, that you are on some sort of resolution back onto your D chord. So I hope that's what you're talking about. Who knows? But if not, then we will look at it another time. I think I'm out for this evening. Thanks everybody for jumping on. I haven't even finished my coffee and it's definitely gotten cold. So I'm going to have to remedy that, because what is life without hot coffee? I appreciate you being here. Thanks everybody. I hope that's some fun to play around with some close enough. Nice. With some licks and things like that. And I will say au revoir from my little mobile studio tonight. Yeah, thanks. I'm going to enjoy Christchurch. Appreciate it. See you later, everybody. Thanks.